And we're live. What is going on, everybody? Welcome in. We got some news coming in. We already got a bunch of news on the day, and we have a bunch of value in this one, so it should be a fun one. The entire New Orleans Pelican squad's out, so that's going to make it really easy to be paying up for all the studs that we want to be getting in our lineups on this slate tonight, which I always find to be a lot of fun. Should be some star-studded lineups builds that you're able to create. And I am all for it. So, going to get into the breakdown. Break it down on DraftKings first. Talk about the top plays, top values on the slate. We'll talk about FanDuel as well. Leroy says, hello. Hola, Super Draft, brother. How you doing, Leroy? Welcome in. Yes, sponsor of the program is Super Draft. Check them out. That's a link below in the description. Looks like we got 5 likes already, guys. If we can get this stream up to 20 likes, that would be greatly appreciated. And we are going to, we're going to break this thing down, man. Should be fun. Should be a fun one, I can tell you right now, because you're going to be able to put in anyone and everyone you want. As far as the latest update, we just did get confirmation that there is indeed no, what am I trying to say here? Gordon Hayward, Marcus Morris, and no Fred VanVleet. So that's the latest and greatest. As if we didn't have enough value as is. Even more value opening up on the slate, so, like I've already said multiple times, should be fun. And guess what? Will Barton just got ruled out. Added to the list. Added to the list of values. So now we're going to have some more Denver guys that we're going to be looking to. Jeff Green's going to play, so. But yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. We can run that back to that as far as the latest. But we kind of have already an idea of where we're going to be looking to on this slate today. And let's get into it. So Denver taking on Detroit is the first game on the slate. So we just got confirmation there is indeed no Will Barton. What does that mean? Well, first of all, he was listed as probable, so that's a bit of a surprise. Wasn't even anticipating that. As far as the total in this game comes in with a 216.5 over-under. It's an 8-point spread in favor of the Denver Nuggets. So expected to be a pretty easy win in favor of the Denver Nuggets. But now there's no Will Barton. So that means we're going to be having a lot more interest in a Campazzo, who's going to become another interesting value play here on the slate. Was not expecting this. So at 3-6, Fasundu Campazzo is going to become an intriguing play for us as well. I'm going to have to update my projections based upon this latest injury news. But that could be somewhere we're looking to. I think it's going to be a little bit difficult to be getting too cute with your value on this slate tonight, considering an entire team's out. We just got confirmation that there's no Fred VanVleet, which is going to get a big bump up to some other guys. Precious Achiuwa was expected to slide into the starting lineup now for the Toronto Raptors. So, yeah, Campazzo is going to be much more of an interesting value play now. Maybe the game has more of a tendency of staying close, which is going to be making Nikola Jokic a much more valid play than he was before. I mean, he's always a valid play. He's one of the best fantasy point producers in the league. In fact, he is the best fantasy point producer in the league. But the biggest concern for me is the fact that this game is the fastest paced game on the slate. It's only a 216.5 over-under. You look at some of the other totals we have on the slate. We have a 222.5, a 226.5, 220.5, 234, 232. 2 games up in the 230. The nightcap game is pretty slow paced as well with a 210.5 over-under. But that, in a weird way, that makes me a lot more interested in Nikola Jokic. It should be very easy to be able to get up to him on this slate tonight with all the value that we have on that New Orleans Pelicans squad that we'll get to when we get there. But Nikola Jokic, always a good play. Now that Will Barton's out, that makes things a little bit more intriguing. Like I said, Campazzo is going to be a lot more of an interesting play as well. And so, yeah, overall for me, that's going to mainly make Nikola Jokic a bigger priority for me. It is certainly going to give a bump up in usage too, and Aaron Gordon as well for the Denver side. And also, you're going to be taking a much harder look to just all these other Denver guys in general. Monty Morris should get a bump up as well now here at a 4.7 price tag. He's probably going to kind of fall in no man's land for me on this slate where we have so much value. So for me, Monty Morris, not really too much of a priority for me in my lineups. Tap My Life says, Jokic or Embiid? Well, my man, I would have probably said Embiid before, but now that we just got this news, I'm probably going with Jokic. I think there's a higher chance this game stays close now with all of the New Orleans Pelicans squad ruled out. That 76ers game now has an 11.5 point spread. This Denver game had an 8-point spread. It's a faster paced game overall with a 216.5 over under. And now there's no Will Barton, which should be enough to boost Nikola Jokic's usage up, but also I just think overall that makes it so that this game has a far more likelihood of staying close. So I think getting to Nikola Jokic might be a thing now, and getting to him should be pretty easy to do considering all the value that we have in that New Orleans Pelican squad. So yeah, overall in this first game on the Detroit side, you can run it back with a Sadiq Bey, a Cade Cunningham, Hamidou Diallo. Honestly, these guys are just not going to be grading out as that big of priorities for me. And with all these other plays we have on the slate, so for me, that game's pretty quick. It's probably going to be Nikola Jokic and nothing else. Aaron Gordon does become a much more intriguing play now with there being no Will Barton. But I just think he falls in a mid-range price tag that we're probably not going to have to get to on this slate because we have so much value. We're probably going to be going to some cheaper guys and then paying up for those studs. So he's a decent play, but for me, probably not going to be getting there. LA Clippers taking on the Washington Wizards. Marcus Morris just got ruled out because of a personal reason, so that's interesting. That's going to give a bump up to a Brandon Boston, a Terrence Mann. For me, even though that's a bump up to those guys, they become just kind of lower-owned tournament flyer plays for me. If you want to go there, I wouldn't call you crazy, but this game doesn't have the best game environment. The Clippers are healthy enough to where they're not nearly as good a plays as some of these other teams that we're going to talk about. And then on the Wizards side, same thing. The center rotations become a mess. They're rotating Gafford. They have Rui Hachimura in there, Thomas Bryant, Kuzma, Caldwell Pope, Bradley Beal, and Spencer Dinwiddie are all back. And we have more news. Oh my goodness. Scotty Barnes is listed as questionable. Fantastic, guys. As if we should have expected anything else on a Tuesday huge slate. Scotty Barnes is now listed as questionable. All right. So the Toronto Raptors, we're going to get to this game, are in a position where they get to take on one of the best, easiest matchups in the league, taking on a Charlotte Hornets squad. And there's a solid chance now they're going to be without two of their starters. Being that Scotty Barnes hasn't been listed as questionable or anything the entire day, and that just got brought up, I tend to think he's probably going to get ruled out. So that's going to really bump up Gary Trent, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, Precious Achiuwa, and Chris Boucher. That is interesting. That is very interesting. So let's talk about it. Charlotte taking on Toronto's the next game. We just got confirmation there's no Fred VanVleet. Now we're getting news that Scotty Barnes is listed as questionable. And we know the Toronto Raptors run a very tight rotation as is. They don't really spread their minutes thin. They go with their starters, massive minutes. Now we have two starters probably going to be out in this one. There's going to be no OG Anunoby. I'm sorry, no Scotty Barnes, most likely, in my opinion. And we already know Fred VanVleet's out. So that is interesting. That's going to make Svi Mikhailuk a thing, who is someone we weren't even looking to. He's all the way down here at 3-3 on DraftKings. And, I mean, maybe a Banton if he gets to start, but most likely I'm guessing that Svi's going to be the one that's sliding in that role, getting a ton more minutes. So I think these Toronto guys are going to become really big priorities for us now. We're going to be taking a hard look to a Pascal Siakam, an OG Anunoby, Chris Boucher, a Gary Trent, and a Precious Achiuwa. Gary Trent now becomes point guard Gary Trent from the looks of it for this Toronto Raptors team, and that's a big upgrade for him. He's already priced very reasonably as is. He's been working his way back from injury and slowly climbing up his minutes. Came back on the 21st, played 29 minutes. Last time out, played 28 minutes. I think we see him play in the mid to upper 30s now, and he gets one of the best possible matchups you could ask for, taking on a Charlotte Hornets squad. So he all of a sudden becomes one of the best plays on the slate with this Toronto Raptors news. And like I said, I would anticipate Scotty Barnes being listed as questionable out of nowhere. It means he's out. I mean, why would they? I mean, he hasn't been listed on the injury report all day. Now all of a sudden he's questionable. That's going to make us want to load up on these guys. Toronto's going to be fantastic now. OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes being out. Chris Boucher is going to become a much better option. And on the other side of Charlotte, with there being no Gordon Hayward now, I think that Kelly Oubre and PJ Washington become much better options as well. So this game just got a lot more interesting for these guys that are priced in the mid to low range, dealing with some injuries. And especially on the Toronto side, I have a feeling I'm going to be wanting to get a lot of Toronto exposure now. This slate's wild, man. You're going to be able to play anyone and everyone you want. But yeah, so now Toronto becomes just really good plays for me in my projection model and really big priorities. So there's people that, those are guys that I'm going to really want to be prioritizing now. And Yeah, that is. I don't know, man. We're going to be able to play all these studs. I think Nikola Jokic becomes a much better play now. I know you can only play 2 centers on a slate. Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, Pascal Siakam has power forward and center eligibility. These guys are going to be big time plays now. So Toronto just got a lot more interesting, which leads us to the next segment of the program, which is the New Orleans Pelicans, and their entire team got ruled out earlier. They have no Brandon Ingram, no Jonas Valanciunas, no Josh Hart, no Devontae Graham. So for that reason, a lot of these guys are going to be high priorities for me. Jackson Hayes is only 3-1. Fantastic fantasy point per minute producer at a 3-1 price tag. He becomes a smash play. Once again, he is center eligible, and you can only play 2 centers. So that's something that we're going to have to kind of discuss as we go along here. You should be loving every single person in your lineup tonight. That's all I got to say. The way this slate's going, it is going to be so easy to be loading up on these studs in these fast, up-tempo games. James Harden's going to be my biggest priority spend-up, so we'll talk about that when we get to the Brooklyn Nets game. But this is just becoming really easy. The scoring on this slate tonight is going to be absolutely absurd. We are going to see some seriously high scoring. So if you're playing on a site and you usually think like 300 fantasy points or whatever it is good, don't be expecting to win a lot of money tonight with that kind of score. We're going to be seeing some ridiculously high scoring tonight. So should be a fun one. That's all I got to say. Jackson Hayes is going to be the first one that I'm looking to go to. Jose Alvarado is only 3-1. He's putting up 0.97 DK points per minute on the season. He's also a phenomenal value play. He only does have point guard eligibility, so that is reserving a point guard spot for you, but really grading out as a great play for me, as well as Nickeil Alexander-Walker at 3-7, who's putting up 0.88 DK points per minute on the season, and once again is another phenomenal value play in this spot. And don't sleep on some backup minutes as well at the center spot for Hernan Gomez. I think his pricing is a little bit different on both websites here, is the only thing. On DraftKings, yeah, they've gotten priced up to 4-7 over there on FanDuel. He's the minimum salary, where I really have a lot of interest in him. Respectable play over here on DraftKings, but not nearly as interested as I am over there on FanDuel, where he's minimum salary. So on DraftKings specifically, I'm going to be loading up on some Alexander Walker, some Jose Alvarado, and some Jackson Hayes. I mean, those guys are just smash plays in this spot on the New Orleans Pelicans squad. Should be opening up a lot of salary in your lineups to be jamming in those studs. So really want to be prioritizing them. Herbert Jones at 4-5 is certainly a decent play. I kind of think he's going to be a little bit left in no man's. Like, if Herbert Jones is really highly owned at 4-5, like, don't get me wrong, he's a really good value play here, but he might be someone that I'm willing to go a little bit underweight on and just load up on the guys that are cheaper. Because we're going to be able to just load in on all those studs, maybe taking those cheaper guys and then paying up for the really top studs in this slate would be my approach. But overall, yeah. Those are the guys you're looking to in this game. Running it back on the Philadelphia side, we just did get news that Matisse Thybulle is going to be in, so that's going to shake up the rotation a little bit. Tyrese Maxey and Furkan Korkmaz are both going to be really good guard plays here because there is indeed no Seth Curry, there's no Shake Milton, there's no Danny Green, so you take those 3 guards out of the equation. Obviously, these 2 guys are going to get big bumps up here. The question is, how big of priorities are there for us now that we have all this Toronto news? We have all of this New Orleans Pelicans news. I think that these Philadelphia guys grade out as decent plays overall, but they're actually not as good as they once were when we were first taking a look at this slate. So for me, decent value plays, really good value plays, actually. That's just these other plays are just really good, like phenomenal. So Joel Embiid at 11-3 is going to be a valid pay-up option. Once again, though, with this game expected to kind of blow out now with all the New Orleans Pelicans guys being out, maybe he doesn't get quite as big a run as we typically are accustomed to seeing out of him. So I might be leaning towards going Jokic there with all the value that we have. Don't get me wrong, if you're landing on either Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic, I think you're really you're in the right spot. Your head's in the right spot because these 2 guys are going to be big priorities for me. Tons of upside on the slate tonight, and should be very easy to fit in your lineups with that New Orleans Pelicans value that we just talked about. Sacramento taking on Boston. This game is a game that comes in with decent plays, but are all of a sudden seeming like they're not that big of priorities for me with all this news we had. Like Robert Williams is a guy I was looking to early in the day at the center position at a 7-2 price tag. He's been really good, getting a lot of minutes now. Really good fantasy point per minute production out of him. So he's someone that I would really want to have a lot of interest in prior to this news. Now I think we're going to get a Precious Achiawa, possibly a Chris Boucher that we just talked about. We already have a Jackson Hayes at a very cheap salary. So I think that the center position, he's just going to kind of be in no man's land once again. There's going to be a lot of that going on. And the same can be said for the rest of this game, to be honest with you. The only thing I would say is paying up for Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. They're going to be kind of the top priorities for me in this game. And if there is no De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Halliburton's going to get a big bump up. But other than that, probably not going to be going to this one all too much with all this news coming out now. So 220.5 over under, decent game overall. Just not going to be nearly as much of a priority for me now with these options. It's going to be mainly the biggest upside guys, which are going to be Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown on the Celtics side. If there's no De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Halliburton becomes a much better play. But even with that being said, do I want to go here that much? Not really. Rashawn Holmes at 4.6 on DraftKings is the one that stands out to me the most. It's just he's sharing his minutes with these other guys enough to where is he really a big priority for us if we have a Precious Achiawa going to playing all these minutes all of a sudden. I'm not sure I would rather be going there over him, but don't get me wrong. Rashawn Holmes is a very good play on the slate tonight, so if you want to go there, certainly does make some sense. But we have that Jackson Hayes at only a 3-month price tag. We have Nikola Jokic as a pay-up option. We have Precious Achiawa at only 4.2 now. So Rashawn Holmes is close to as good of a play as Precious Achiawa for me now. But Precious Achiawa does kind of take the cake there. And like I said, I do think P.J. Washington gets a pretty big bump up as well with there being no Gordon Hayward. So Rashawn Holmes definitely going to be the preferred option on the Sacramento side for me. If you want to go there, certainly a good play. Other than that, you're paying up for Jason Tatum in this game. And other than that, I just don't really think it's all that necessary. And I think there's some better pay-up options than Jason Tatum. Most notably, Mr. James Harden in this next game. We're going to talk about him. James Harden. There's no Kyrie Irving. There's no Kevin Durant. Whenever that happens, James Harden's usage goes through the roof. The only possible argument that you could make against James Harden is if there wasn't the proper value to be fitting him in your lineups. But let me tell you, this is not the slate where that's the case. So you should be getting a lot of James Harden in your lineup. If you're not, I think you're going to deeply regret that. So I would highly suggest that you're prioritizing him. And if you're having a hard time getting James Harden in your lineups tonight, you are not building your lineups correctly, and you should probably take a little bit of a crash course on lineup construction because you should be able to do it, guys. I mean, there's so much value. It's going to be really, really easy to get him in. Jamming that New Orleans Pelicans value, all of a sudden Toronto's becoming like one of the best priorities for me now. With all that news coming out of no Fred VanVleet, probably no Scotty Barnes all of a sudden, so even more value opening up. And they're in good matchups, so it's crazy. Like we have the Sixers value that we already had, which is now grading out as not the best value. We have Raptors taking on Charlotte, which is one of the best possible matchups you could have. We have some really fast up-tempo games in the late games as well, which we're going to get to. So for me, in this game, it's going to be James Harden, just loading up on him. Honestly, as far as anyone else in this game, probably not too intrigued now. LeBron James running it back on the other side at 11-1 is a decent play. Anthony Davis is expected to return in this one, though. I think that's going to be cutting into LeBron's usage enough to where that's a no thank you for me. I'd much rather go to some other guys. Nicholas Claxton is expected to play, so we're on this game right now. Might as well just make that announcement. That news just came through. So Nicholas Claxton is expected to be in, so you're not going to be seeing much De'Aaron Sharp anymore. I think Nicholas Claxton is a decent option, but not going to be nearly as much of a priority for me with the Raptors news and the New Orleans Pelicans news, so not really too intrigued to go there. And yeah. So this game, it's pretty easy for me. It's James Harden. Anyone else? Not too intrigued, to be honest with you. You can go to some other guys in tournaments, but for me, it's a no. San Antonio Spurs taking on the Houston Rockets. DeJounte Murray at 10K. Once again, a fantastic pay-up option in a really good game environment, and we should be able to fit him in our lineups really easily here. It's a 234 over-under, 5-point spread in favor of the San Antonio Spurs. Expected to stay close, expected to be up-tempo. And the Houston Rockets are the worst defense in the league, so that means I am going to love me some DeJounte Murray. And these rest of these Spurs guys are priced very friendly as well. You have Jakob Poeltl at 6'4", Keldon Johnson at 5K, Doug McDermott at 3.7, Derek White at only 6K on DraftKings. They did a terrible job of pricing these guys up. So DraftKings is just almost forcing you to play these guys. The only counter argument is now with all this value opening up, like I said, I don't think we're going to be landing on too many of these mid-range plays. And now that the Toronto Raptors value opened up, they're probably going to be the mid-range plays that we're preferring in this spot. So for me, that's where I'm going to be looking to. But certainly, I mean, these Spurs plays are going to be phenomenal. Derek White at 6K, Keldon Johnson at 5K, and Jakob Poeltl at 6'4". Really, really, really good plays over here on DraftKings. So once again, the center position is loaded, man. That's the problem. Like, who are you going to play at the center position? I don't know. Honestly, I am just so far from worried about roster construction right now. I'm just going to be jamming in the top studs, and I know there's going to be so many good value plays around it that it's going to be so easy tonight. The scoring is going to be crazy. I'm looking forward to it, but it's going to be crazy. Running it back on the other side, you have Christian Wood at 8K. I think he becomes a non-factor for the most part. He's a really great play here, but at his price tag, I think he's very appropriately priced compared to some of these other options we have opening up. So he's a good play, don't get me wrong, but you can only play 2 centers at the max with the center spot and the utility spot, so I don't really know that I'm going to be landing there. Kevin Porter Jr. at 6'3", once again, a really good play in a fast up-tempo game. Am I going to be landing there with these other options? Maybe. I mean, those are the 2 guys I'd be looking to on the Houston side. Other than that, really not looking to get too cute with anyone. And on the San Antonio Spurs side, really not looking to get too cute either. It's DeJounte Murray, it's Jakob Poeltl, it's Derek White for me. Keldon Johnson's also a great option, but he's a much more risky option. So for me, I don't really think I'm going to be getting too much Keldon Johnson exposure. He's just hit or miss, and I don't feel like I'm going to have anyone in my lineup that's hit or miss tonight. We have guys loading up on minutes. We have guys bigger usage roles. There's every single guy in my lineup is going to have a purpose in a fast up-tempo game and a usage bump-up spot. So Dallas taking on the Golden State Warriors. Next game on the slate. This game all of a sudden becomes not too intriguing. I guess you could be paying up for a Luka Doncic or Stephen Curry. On the Golden State Warriors side, I'm really not interested in going there. They're all priced pretty appropriately. They're all healthy. Dallas, I think it's pretty much Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic and nothing else for me. Kristaps at 7.5 is priced pretty friendly over here on DraftKings. He has, 60 fantasy point upside, so if you want to go to him, certainly would approve of that. And then Luka Doncic at 10.9 has really been flashing some upside as of late. He is only point guard eligible. At some point, eligibility is going to become an issue. We just talked about DeJounte Murray in a much better, fast, up-tempo game environment than Luka Doncic. So for me, if anything, with all the value, maybe I'm jamming in like a James Harden and a Luka Doncic. But for me, I'd much rather go to DeJounte Murray at a discount at only 10K in a faster up-tempo game, I think. There could be, don't get me wrong, Luka's a phenomenal play as well, and he's really been flashing that 70-point upside. If you get 70 points out of him and DeJounte Murray goes out there and gets you 50, you need that on the slate. So I'm not going to be the one to talk you off Luka. It does make sense. He's just not quite as much of a... He's not in as good of a fantasy point environment. DeJounte Murray has the best possible matchup you could ask for. It's a 234 over-under. He's taking on a Houston squad that's terrible defensively, and we haven't even talked about the Minnesota Timberwolves and Trailblazers game, which also comes in with a 232.5 over-under. So that's going to be tough. That's going to be really, really tough deciding between Luka and DeJounte Murray. James Harden's the number 1 of those 3 for me by far, so that's not a question. It's the next spot, and then you also have Jokic, Embiid. You're going to be able to get all these guys in, so getting on the top upside guys, getting on those guys that gets, go out there and put up like 70 is going to be a big priority. If you want to go to Luka Doncic, I don't hate it. He has been flashing that upside. And then rounding things out, we have another fantastic game here. Minnesota taking on the Portland Trailblazers. This game comes in with a 232.5 over-under. And great fantasy point environment. You have Karl-Anthony Towns at 9.4, Yusuf Nurkic at 8.5, both going to be great center plays. The fact of the matter is you can only play, once again, 2 centers. Are these 2 going to be priorities for us now? We have Precious Achiuwa, we have Jackson Hayes, we have Nikola Jokic, we have Joel Embiid. Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid are the top 2 center plays on the slate for me. I do think Yusuf Nurkic at 8.5 is a really, really good center spot. I could land on him. Karl-Anthony Towns for me probably is the one that I'm willing to leave out the most. Like, Karl-Anthony Towns is probably going to go out there and have a good game, but it's not going to be good enough at this price tag for all these other options that we have, would be my guess. He has the upside. Portland's one of the best matchups you could ask for as well. But for me, it's going to be Embiid. It's going to be Nikola Jokic. It's going to be Jackson Hayes as a value plays to be able to pay up for James Harden. James Harden is my biggest priority pay up by far. So, and then Minnesota, I really like D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards. So I'd much rather play D'Angelo Russell at 7.7 and Anthony Edwards at 7.6 than paying up for a Karl-Anthony Towns. I think they have similar upside at a big discount in comparison to him. So I'd rather be filling in those other spots with guys from Minnesota, such as those 2. And running it back on the other side with Portland, it's pretty simple. It's CJ McCollum, Anthony Simmons are going to take the most amount of usage on this team. However, Norman Powell coming back should cut into those a little bit. So with that being said, I think the top 2 guys on Portland for me are really going to be CJ McCollum and Yusuf Nurkic, and not really getting too much exposure to those other guys. They're just kind of all graded appropriately now. I think Nurkic and CJ McCollum are the top 2 usage guys. Really good fantasy point environment here, so I would just be prioritizing those 2. And then as far as the other guys, not too much of a priority for me. So yeah, guys, this slate is going to be fun, man. You are going to be able to get all these studs in. You should not be questioning your value. The scoring on this slate is going to be absurd. I'm playing over on FanDuel tonight personally, so we're going to get into this FanDuel breakdown. If you enjoyed that DraftKings breakdown, if you're enjoying the content so far, guys, it would be greatly appreciated if you take a second to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. You don't miss when I go live. I really do greatly appreciate it. I'll be here all NBA DFS season long, breaking down these slates. And if you are interested in some premium content for me, you can check that out over here on Patreon, patreon.com/KJK_DFS. $19.99 a month. It's an absolute steal. I'm telling you right now, these other sites across the industry, they're charging you like $50, $60 a month, $80 a month for these packages. I offer you premium projections, my core plays, all that fun stuff. If you do want to check that out, I'm going to put it in the chat. It's also linked below in the description. And also check out the sponsor of the program, SuperDraft. If you haven't checked them out, I'm going to put the link in the chat as well. They're going to offer all sorts of fun stuff over there. If you haven't tuned into my videos before, they have a nice little subscription-based package. You can start your own home-based business as well, referring people and making commissions on that, SuperDraft. And they're giving you free contests every single night with those subscriptions. So check that out. That's linked below in the description. We'll round that back. But if you want to become a premium content member, quick before we continue on to FanDuel, I just want to put up my current Patreon members, give you guys a shout-out. Really do appreciate all your support. And do a little update on the chat here, answer some questions before we go over to FanDuel. But, yeah, this slate is going to be a fun one. This is going to be very high scoring. Brizzy says, which and how many Pels should we lock in our lineups on DK tonight? My favorite Pelicans on DraftKings tonight are as follows. Jackson Hayes, number 1. Jose Alvarado, number 2. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, number 3. I think you could be playing up to like 5 Pels. Those 3 are by far my favorite. So, yeah, that should help you out, hopefully. And let's talk about FanDuel. Let's talk about it. So, we kind of already have an idea on the slate. My top priority for my pay-up is going to be James Harden at 10.5. I think you should be getting him in your lineups very, very easily over here on FanDuel. We have so much value. It should be very, very easy to do. So, he's top priority for me. DeJounte Murray at 10.3. Once again, I think he's probably going to be worth taking the discount on in comparison to Luka Doncic. It's a little bit scary because if DeJounte Murray goes out there and does his typical, like 50 fantasy points and Luka goes out there and puts up 70, you're probably not going to be doing good enough to, win that top place in your tournament. So that's really the toughest place for me. James Harden's the number 1 as far as the secondary options. Is it DeJounte Murray or is it Luka Doncic? And we have enough salary relief to get up to Luka Doncic, so that's a little bit scary. LeBron James, the pay-up option, really isn't a big priority for me on this slate now with Anthony Davis returning. So for him, I'm really not all that intrigued. Pascal Siakam at 9.1 now, though, with there being no Fred VanVleet, and now it's looking like there's probably going to be no Scotty Barnes. He's going to become a really, really good play here at 9.1. He's only power forward eligible, so that's kind of a spot where I'd probably be looking to lock him in at one of my power forward spots with the amount of upside he's going to have now. Taking on a Charlotte Hornets squad that's really bad defensively, then you take Scotty Barnes out of the equation, and you take a Fred VanVleet out of the equation. I mean, Pascal Siakam is going to grade out as a really, really great play here. Now, no Fred VanVleet, no Scotty Barnes. That's a big, big deal. So I think Pascal Siakam at 9.1 becomes a smash play over here. At the center position, once again, you can only play one center on FanDuel. It's going to be really tough. There's a lot of good options. You have Nikola Jokic as a pay-up at 11.8. I talked about it with no Will Barton. Ironically, I think that Nikola Jokic becomes a much bigger priority for me now than he was earlier in the day for me. I just think that gives him an even bigger bump up in usage, and it makes it a far more likelihood that this game stays close now. So Joel Embiid was where I was leading earlier in the day. Now I think that with an 11.5 point spread in favor of Philadelphia, maybe Joel Embiid doesn't get that full allotment of minutes, and Nikola Jokic could. Nikola Jokic is the best fantasy point producer in the league, and we have so much value that it should be pretty easy to be fitting him in your lineup. So I think he's becoming a bigger priority for me. But there's so many good plays, man. Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, Yusuf Nurkic at 8.5, Christian Wood at 8.3, Jakob Poeltl at 7.7 against that Houston squad, I think is a really good play. He's not as good of a play over here on FanDuel as DraftKings because DraftKings just mispriced him even worse. But, I mean, look at the upside he's been producing as of late. He's played in the mid-30s to upper 30s every single game. gets to take on the worst defense in the league in Houston. And if you fall on him in your lineup and you really like the rest of your lineup, I'm not going to be the one to tell you to not play him. That's for sure. So I like him. Robert Williams at 6'9" was a bigger priority for me earlier in the day when we didn't have all this value. Now he's just kind of falling in the no man's land, I think. So I'm not too intrigued there. And we have Nicholas Claxton returning. So I think he's a decent option. I think that PJ Washington's going to get a big bump up with there being no Gordon Hayward in this game. Not sure he's going to be too big of a priority for me with all these other teams dealing with more injuries is the only thing. Like we have a Jackson Hayes who's priced only at a 3.9 price tag. And De'Aaron Fox is ruled out. So De'Aaron Fox is ruled out. Another thing to add to the list, that's going to make Tyrese Halliburton a much better play. And Maytu's out as well, which is going to lock in more minutes for a Rashawn Holmes and a Marvin Bagley. So those guys become better plays. I'm not sure how big of a priority for me. Once again, those guys are going to be with all this Toronto value and stuff opening up. With there being no Fred VanVleet, it's looking like we're going to see some point guard Gary Trent Jr. He's only 5K over here on FanDuel. He's very cheap on DraftKings as well. He becomes one of the best plays on the slate. I don't think that Scotty Barnes is going to end up playing in this one, considering he wasn't on the injury report all day. Now all of a sudden he's questionable. I'm assuming he's out. Obviously, if he's in, that's going to change the script a little bit here. But that's also going to make OG Anunoby a fantastic play here at 6'3" on FanDuel. So really like those guys over here on FanDuel. And then at the shooting guard position, we already talked about it. But James Harden, really big priority for me as far as a pay-up option. Tyrese Halliburton becomes a much better play now at 7'7". Going to have a lot more upside with there being no De'Aaron Fox. So I think he could be a really intriguing play here. Put up 48 FanDuel points last time with no De'Aaron Fox. Could very easily see him go out there and put up 50-plus FanDuel points tonight, so I like him. D'Angelo Russell at 7'6" and Anthony Edwards at 6'7" are both priced very, very friendly on FanDuel as well. So those are two guys I would strongly consider in my lineups. And then just loading up on that New Orleans Pelicans value. We talked about it. So here on FanDuel, you have Jose Alvarado at a 4.1 price tag on the season on a permanent basis. This guy's fantasy point production on FanDuel has been really, really good. He's putting up 1.05 FanDuel points per minute. We talked about Jackson Hayes at 3.9. He's putting up one FanDuel point per minute. Jackson Hayes is only priced at 3.9. So really going to like him. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is priced at 3.8. He's also going to be a really good value play now on this FanDuel slate. So loading up on that Pelicans value, loading up on the Toronto Raptors value now. We now have a Precious Achiawa, who's someone we weren't even considering, opening up at only 4.1. Expected to get a lot of run now with there being no Fred VanVleet and probably no Scotty Barnes at only a 4.1 price tag. He becomes a really big priority for me on a site like FanDuel all of a sudden. So, I mean, get James Harden in your lineups. That's step one for me on both websites. You got to get James Harden and then just load up on that value. Load up on those Toronto guys. Load up on that New Orleans Pelicans value. Pascal Siakam becomes one of the best pay-up options for me now. DeJounte Murray in a really fast up-paced game. If you can get Luka Doncic in your lineups, I certainly don't hate it. He's in the worst fantasy point environment on the slate, but he's been showing 70 fantasy point upside in every single game as of late. And the fact of the matter is, we have the value to get up to him now. So, yeah, you got to go stars and scrubs. If you're not going stars and scrubs, you're probably doing it wrong. I mean, on a site like FanDuel, positional eligibility and all that stuff becomes, you know, you're a little bit more limited than you are on a site like DraftKings where you have the forward and the guard and the utility. So making sure you lock in really, really good plays at every position, like the center position obviously is very, very important. You can only play one center, so probably locking in Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid as a pay-up option will be where you end up, and or Yusuf Nurkic, Christian Wood, Jakob Poeltl. Those are going to be my top center plays. I mean, Rashawn Holmes at 5'9" is a decent center play. You can play a Precious Achiawa or PJ Washington now with those minutes opening up. So if you want to go cheap there, but that means you're paying up for like, you know, you're probably paying up for like Luka Doncic, DeJounte Murray, James Harden, Jason Tatum if you're doing that because you're going to need the cheaper guys. But yeah, really, really going to like this slate, man. This slate's going to be fun. There's so much value. Just be loading up on these fast-paced games. I don't think it's necessary to be getting cute. Load up on the Pelicans value. Load up on the top fantasy point producers in the league. Nikola Jokic, James Harden, with there being no Kevin Durant and no Kyrie Irving, is the best play on the slate. So really like him. On the San Antonio Spurs Houston game, loading up on some DeJounte Murray, some Christian Wood, some Kevin Porter really makes a lot of sense to me. Some Jakob Poeltl. The Minnesota Timberwolves we talked about. D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards are going to be my favorite options there based upon their price tags. I think they have a lot more upside than their price tags. On the other side of that game, CJ McCollum and Yusuf Nurkic are going to be my top 2 options. And then the last game for me, it's Luka Doncic, it's Kristaps Porzingis on the Warriors side. Really just not interested to go there. I don't think it's really smart to be loading up on them, to be honest. So, yeah, that is my overall breakdown. We talked about DraftKings. We talked about FanDuel, guys. If you're enjoying this stream, we got 25 people in here, only 12 likes. Hit that like button, guys. Really do greatly appreciate it. And if you have any questions in the chat, please do ask them. I'll be answering questions. And hanging around here for another 10 minutes or so, and then I'm going to bounce out of here, head over, update my premium content. If you haven't become a premium content member, I would highly suggest you check it out. And big thank you to my current Patreon members. Head on over there to patreon.com/KJK_DFS. That's linked below in the description. And it is a $19.99 charge. Like I said, these other sites are charging you $50, $60 a month. If you haven't checked out mine, it's priced very, very reasonably, so I would encourage you to do so. And if you have any questions, please do ask them. This is the question portion of the segment, so I want to make sure that I'm answering all of your questions. And let's talk about it. Fresh says, best points per dollar play on FanDuel. Best points per play on FanDuel. Let's see. I got to update my projections with this latest news, but I have a pre-template on the back end here. My best points per dollar play is going to be Nickeil Alexander-Walker at a 3.8 price tag. So he is my best points per dollar play on the New Orleans Pelicans. It's going to be Nickeil Alexander-Walker at 3.8. The entire team's out. We saw him play 34 minutes last time out. He put up 30 FanDuel points. He has a lot more room for upside than that at a 3.8 price tag. Really, really going to like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, so he would be my top guy. Wood has owned Poeltl in all 3 meetings this season. Yeah, I like Christian Wood a lot, for sure. I definitely think he's a great play. And it's just a matter of whether you fall on him based upon your roster construction and what website you're playing on. Like, don't get me wrong, I think it's a great play, but on DraftKings, you can only play 2 centers at the max. And if you play Christian Wood at your center spot, then you can't play Joel Embiid. You can't play Nikola Jokic. So, like, do you really want to play Christian Wood instead of Nikola Jokic? Not too sure that you do. I think Christian Wood's a really great play. Don't get me wrong, but yeah. Hayes or Hernan Gomez? I would go with Hayes on DraftKings, and then Hernan Gomez's minimum salary on FanDuel, so that becomes a little bit interesting. Sean says, Hayes won't even play, I don't think. Domestic violence and assaulting a cop, etc. Okay, that is news to me, man. Is that... Sean, can you let me know? Is that, like, new news? Like, did that just come out? When did that get reported? I'm anticipating that Jackson Hayes plays tonight, so that's... I haven't heard anything about that. Did that, like, just come out, man? I think that Jackson Hayes is going to play tonight. Just to be fully transparent with everyone, I'm taking it as if Jackson Hayes plays tonight. Just out today. Jackson Hayes. Okay, I'm going to look this up. Jackson Hayes arrest on Twitter. Let's do it live on the stream. Thank you for putting that in the chat. Pelicans players available Tuesday. Jackson Hayes. Pelicans center. Jackson Hayes is... Okay, 44 minutes ago. Jackson Hayes center. Jackson Hayes... Okay. Has been formally charged with domestic violence for resisting arrest and battery against a police officer stemming from his arrest last summer. All right. Well, Sean, thanks for bringing that up, man. I'm just seeing this. That came out 1 minute ago on a lot of this stuff. So, yeah. All right, so that's going to make... I don't know, man. I still think he plays tonight, though. Obviously, that's not okay. I'm not trying to encourage everyone to just say, oh, it's not a big deal. But I'm just talking about strictly from a projection aspect right now. I still think he plays. I would say certainly keep your eyes on the starting lineup. If you want to fade him because of that news, I wouldn't blame you. But... yeah, that's news to me. I mean, the starting lineup right now, we have Jose Alvarado, Garrett Temple, Gary Clark, Herbert Jones, Willie Hernan Gomez. Yeah, that's relevant news. So maybe fading Jackson Hayes is the way to go. I'm not sure if people are going to be playing him or not. It would be great to see if the coaching staff releases some news on that. That game does start at 7 p.m. Eastern time, so maybe playing Willie Hernandez and fading him, and then assuming that if that's the case, then Najee Marshall becomes a really, really good play. Najee Marshall's a really good fantasy point per minute producer. He's minimum salary on the season, pulling up his fantasy point per minute production. Let's go ahead and pull it up on the screen and talk about it for the New Orleans Pelicans. On the season with, let's see, Najee Marshall's putting up 0.88 DK points per minute over a 218-minute sample size. So if for some reason we do get confirmation that Jackson Hayes isn't playing, then Najee Marshall becomes a much bigger priority for me. But for the time being, I'm just going to approach this as if Jackson Hayes is playing. We haven't seen that he's out. And being that these Chargers are from last summer, I think we're going to be good to go here as far as him actually playing. Yeah, like I see these tweets. How is Jackson Hayes allowed to play when facing these serious charges? Yeah, I think Jackson Hayes still plays tonight. Unless we get an announcement from the team that they're taking stand with these charges and they're benching him and he's not going to be playing, I think Jackson Hayes plays tonight. So thank you for the update on that. Personally, I mean, obviously, like, I'm not condoning domestic violence or any of that stuff. I'm not just saying, oh, let's let it slide. I'm just trying to figure this out from a pure projection aspect. I do think that Jackson Hayes is still going to play. So for me, he's still a great play. But certainly something to monitor and keep your eyes on. So I appreciate that being mentioned in the chat. Do you like Dorian Finney-Smith on FanDuel? Absolutely not. There are so many better options on FanDuel, man. Do not play Dorian Finney-Smith. That's a terrible play. So with that being said, I'm going to help you out. But there's just so many good plays, man. So you have Anthony Edwards at 6'7", OG Anunoby at 6'3", with there probably being no Scotty Barnes, Kevin Porter at 6'2" in a fast up-tempo game. We got confirmation that, I mean, Finney-Smith has small forward and power forward eligibility, I'm assuming. Or he has small forward shooting guard. Yeah, so like Gary Trent at 5K on the Raptors is going to be a really good play now. We have D'Angelo Russell in the price at the mid-range. We have Tyrese Halliburton at 7'7", with there being no De'Aaron Fox. Like, every single player in your lineup tonight should have some sort of a boost from guys being out. We have Tyrese Maxey at 5'9", with there being no Seth Curry, Danny Green. So Dorian Finney-Smith is a really bad play. I would highly encourage you to not play him. Pivot to some of these guys. We have Nickeil Alexander-Walker with the Pelicans news at 3'8" at the shooting guard small forward position. He's one of the best values on the slate. So yeah, there's a few options for you to go to rather than Dorian Finney-Smith. Could Dorian Finney-Smith go out there and have a big game? Yes, he's 4'3". He plays a lot of minutes. He's not a good fantasy point producer, though, and we have all these other guys priced in the same range that are getting big bumps up in usage. We saw him put up 34.4 FanDuel points last time out. Could do that again. These Pelicans guys could easily put up like 40-plus minutes. Brizzy said he's playing. That came out yesterday. ESPN got the news late. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think we're good to go, man. I think that Jackson Hayes is playing. The only way that it would make it where he isn't playing, obviously, is if the coaching staff just takes a stand that that's not okay. But being that, from what I'm hearing, that news has already been released. The last game they played was literally yesterday on the 24th, and he played 17 minutes. I don't see that he's going to be sitting. And he's a very good fantasy point producer. So from as far as a strictly fantasy sports, not talking anything else, not talking about how good of a human being he is, none of that stuff, set aside, he's a 3.9 salary on FanDuel. He's only 3.1 on DraftKings, and he's one of the best value plays on the slate. So I would highly encourage you to be putting him in your lineups. It's 6:17 p.m., guys. We got 17 likes. Trying to get over to 20 likes. If you're enjoying the stream, hit that like button. And if you have any questions, please do ask. I'm going to hang around here for another, 5-10 minutes, chat it up with you guys. I will stay here as long as there's questions flowing through. If there's not questions, I got a lot of updates to do for my premium NBA projections. If you have not become a premium content member, you can check that out. Go to patreon.com/KJK_DFS. You'll get access to the premium MMA projections, my core plays, my team stats, all that fun stuff, which I will be updating right after this. You also get access to the Discord chat. You can hop in the Discord chat for only $1 the entire month of January. A New Year sale, that's typically a $10 value, so check that out. And once again, we get another 10 minutes, so please, if you need help, if you missed earlier in the stream, if you have questions, ask them, and I will gladly help you. Mitch Dad says, do you like CJ McCollum on FanDuel? I think he's a decent play. I think CJ McCollum's a good play. I just think that, like, where he's landing in that price range, like, I'd much rather play Tyrese Halliburton now with a no De'Aaron Fox. I'd much rather play a D'Angelo Russell at 7'6". I'd much rather play Anthony Edwards at 6'7". I'd much rather play a Tyrese Maxey at 5'9". He is the definition of a good tournament play. CJ McCollum in a fast up-tempo game, you know, any given night can go out there and drop 50 real-life points. Like, he's that good of a shooter. So, from a tournament aspect, I certainly would give you the go to play him. Like, don't get me wrong, he's not a bad play. I just think there's other options. Like, paying up for James Harden is a big priority for me, so I can almost guarantee I'm going to be occupying one of my shooting guard spots with James Harden. He does have small forward eligibility as well, though, so maybe I'll be locking him into that small forward spot, but you get my point. Like, there's just other spots that I'd much rather be going to. Most notably, James Harden. You have DeJounte Murray in that really fast up-tempo game in San Antonio, that 10-3 I really like. And, yeah, LaMelo Ball at 7'8". He's been really underwhelming as of late, and to be honest with you, just the way that this slate's leading up and with all this value that we have, he's probably not going to be a big priority for me. I'd much rather load up on the Toronto side. And the biggest thing for me right now, and if I didn't make this very clear, I'm going to make this very clear right now. Gary Trent Jr. is going to become the point guard in this game for the Toronto Raptors based upon the current projected lineup. And I think that lineup might have came out. Yeah, it did. Scotty Barnes, well, if Scotty Barnes gets ruled out, obviously I guess that's still up for debate on whether Gary Trent's going to be. But I'm anticipating that Gary Trent's going to be starting at the point guard position. That's a very big deal. The guy's already underpriced. He plays a ton of minutes. He gets one of the best possible matchups you could ask for, taking on a Charlotte Hornets squad. And he's now going to have a ton of assist upside in comparison. I mean, Gary Trent Jr. is a really good shooter, typically speaking. He doesn't rack up a lot of assists. You put him at the point guard position, he's going to have a lot more assist usage, a lot more usage overall. With there being no Fred VanVleet, with there being no Scotty Barnes. So, I mean, Gary Trent gets a big bump up here. On both websites, I really like Gary Trent now. All right, guys, it looks like the questions are slowing down here. I just want to reiterate that if you have any, please do ask them. I'll gladly help you out. I don't want to bounce out too early if someone really has a question that they want answered, but if the questions are all good, I probably will bounce out of here. I got to update my core plays, my projections. I got to build my own lineups, last but not least. Don't forget about that. But I got to help out my Patreon members. If you want to become a Patreon member, head on over here to patreon.com/KJK_DFS. You can hop into all this stuff that I talk about after the stream. You can ask me questions in the Discord chat. And before I head off, I want to once again thank all my current Patreon members. A-Dub, Adam, Anthony, Asaph, Brian, Cody, Josh, K-Ped, Michael, Mike, Patrick, Renard, Smoothie, Tap My Life, Timothy, and Tucker. Thank you all for the support. There are many ways to support this channel from a free aspect. 1, watching it. Thank you for tuning in. 2, hit that like button. 3, hit that subscribe button. If you'd like to get the KJK DFS emoji next to your name in the chat, you can become a KJK DFS fan club member by clicking that join button down below the video as well. It's a KJK DFS fan club. You can get multiple tiers. There's like a diamond tier, platinum tier, gold, bronze, different prices. It's just a way of showing support. I don't really care which one you sign up for. Any support is appreciated. If you win a big tournament or something and you want to get the more expensive one, great. If you want to get the cheap one, just so you get priority in the comments, no issues for that. No issues. I appreciate the support. Bridgie says, Murray or Embiid on DK tonight? Depends on roster construction, man. Depends on roster construction. That's what it comes down to. It depends upon what positions you're paying up for and which ones you aren't. I like both those plays. If I had to pick one, I'm going to go with DeJounte Murray because the spread's closer and it's a faster-paced game. So based upon the fact that DeJounte Murray has a much more likelihood of getting his full allotment of minutes, and he's in a better game environment. I will go with DeJounte Murray there. If you want to play Joel Embiid, I do not think you are crazy, though. So to answer your question, if I had to pick one, DeJounte Murray is the answer. AD limited, yes, Anthony Davis is going to be limited. Do not play Anthony Davis tonight. And as far as how I'm concerned, all that does is it just makes LeBron James upside limited. It makes Russell Westbrook's upside limited, and it makes it so that you can't play Anthony Davis. So I'm really not too interested in playing anyone on the Lakers. I want to just play James Harden and go from there. Colin says, KJK, my man, what's your favorite players from Pels for DK? My favorite players on the Pelicans on DraftKings, my top 3 plays are going to be in order as far as upside at the price tags. I really like all these guys, but Jackson Hayes, number 1, Jose Alvarado, number 2, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, number 3. So I really like Alexander Walker, Alvarado, and Jackson Hayes. All really good fantasy point producers, all very, very cheap, all stepping into a bigger allotment of minutes with all these guys being out, and all fantastic value plays. It's just going to come down to position eligibility. Like Jose Alvarado is point guard eligible, so you can only play so many point guards. So if you don't end up there, I don't think you're crazy. Once again, Jackson Hayes is only center eligible, so if you don't end up there because you want to pay up for 2 centers, I don't think you're crazy. There are multiple avenues to go there. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is my favorite value play by far just because of the position eligibility, I guess you could say. He's point guard and shooting guard eligible, so based upon pure, like, you know, flexibility and that kind of stuff, I guess he kind of takes the cake for my favorite value play, but that's it. Any exposure for Raps on DK as well? Yeah, I think I'm going to have a ton of exposure because I'm expecting that there's no Scotty Barnes, and we already got confirmation that there's no Fred VanVleet out, so that's going to make, let's pull it up here, but that's going to make OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, Gary Trent, Precious Achiuwa, and Chris Boucher all very, very good plays. They're taking on Charlotte Hornets team that's really bad defensively. We're still waiting on that Scotty Barnes news, but considering he wasn't listed as questionable all day and they just came through with news that he's questionable all of a sudden, I tend to think that's not too promising for him playing tonight. So I'm assuming Scotty Barnes is out. There's already no Fred VanVleet. That's going to make Pascal Siakam as a pay-up option. An elite play at 8'9". He has power forward and center eligibility, so you don't have to take up that center spot with him. So he's going to be a really great play. OG Anunoby's a really great play. Chris Boucher is a really great play. Gary Trent Jr. at 5K right now is going to be my favorite play based upon the fact that I'm anticipating that he starts at the point guard position. He's only 5K. He's going to have a lot more assist upside. And he's been working his way back from an injury, so his minutes haven't gone up to where they typically were. He's been right around 29, 28 minutes. He's played 2 games. His conditioning should be up, so we should see him play in the mid-30s to upper 30s now and take on a larger role. So everything's kind of coming together for him. And don't forget about Precious Achiuwa at 4-2. He's going to play a lot of minutes. Great play. The only thing is, once again, he is only center eligible, so it's going to be tough to be reserving a center spot. If your roster construction is allowing you to pay up for 2 centers or something and you prefer that. But he's a fantastic value play. Colin says, sorry for all the questions. No worry, man. I'm going to hang around here for another couple minutes. No one else is asking questions, so if you got them, ask them. Interest on Jokic over Harden? No. James Harden's my number 1 pay-up option on the slate. However, I really think that you could play both of them. And I really do like both of them. To answer your question, I do prefer James Harden just based upon the fact that you're getting a slight discount. There's no Kyrie Irving and there's no Kevin Durant. But I really like both of them. So if you want to play both of them, and that's where you're leaning, let's just say I think you're doing a pretty good job. I think that's a good way to go here. All right, guys, it's 6:27 p.m. I'm going to do one last call for questions. I'm going to hang around here. And Scotty Barnes is out right on the fly. Okay, so that's what we were anticipating. So what I just touched on, it all becomes really relevant. Load up on Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Chris Boucher, Gary Trent. I mean, my top 3 are going to be Gary Trent, Pascal Siakam, and OG Anunoby. But I think Chris Boucher and Precious Achiuwa are really, really, really good plays now. So, All right, I'm going to bounce out of here, guys. I got to update my core plays, my projections. If you're a premium member, hop in the Discord chat. You can ask questions on this Toronto news, any other news. I'm going to be helping you guys out. Keep your eyes on those core plays. That's really going to give you an idea as to where I'm looking on the slate tonight. Going to be a fun one, guys. The scoring on this slate is going to be absurd. If you are having a lineup that's scoring what you would typically would think is good on a slate tonight, it's not good enough. You should be feeling like Superman with your lineups tonight. If you're not feeling like Superman, you probably don't have a chance of coming in first because the scoring is going to be ridiculous. Should be a fun one, guys. Check out the premium content, link below in the description. Check out the sponsor of the program, Super Draft Pro, link below in the description. Wishing you guys all the best of luck tonight. If you enjoyed this content, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload, guys. Wishing you all the best of luck tonight. And we'll see you in the next one. Good luck tonight, guys. I'm out of here. Peace.